Hey, what's up? This is an overview video and a Git repository on how to set up Appium tests on iOS and Android and then run those on the AWS Device Farm. So there's a link to the Git repository below, and then that README has all kinds of instructions of how to set this up. So set it up for iOS, set it up for Android locally. This is Appium using Java, and then to ultimately run those tests on the AWS Device Farm. The repo and the documentation will help you with setting up the local environment. It'll provide examples for Appium and Java tests, how to find and inspect local elements, debugging locally and on AWS, and then ultimately how to set up the code pipeline on AWS so that when a developer checks an IPA or APK file into a Git repository, it gets picked up, sent over to the AWS Device Farm, and then run. We're running it on 12 different devices, but you can run it on one device or as many as you want to set up. So there's extensive documentation, step-by-step, as well as a video that goes along with each one, and I hope you find it helpful. We use Appium, and this is the Appium GUI. You could run it in a terminal as well. And so the way this works is you'll notice on this simulator here, there is something called a WebDriver agent, and that's an Appium thing. So basically you start the simulator with the WebDriver agent, and then you start this server. And then once the server's up and ready to go, I'm just going to start it and it'll start running, and I'll keep talking because it's going to take a while to run the test. This test basically is going to log someone in from a first install, basically go through all the prompts. They're going to take a quiz. They're going to score one wrong on the quiz, and then we retake the quiz and ultimately reset the book. So I'll go ahead and run this now. And this is just IntelliJ where my project is set up. As this runs, you'll notice the Appium server will start giving us all kinds of data. So if anything ever fails in one of the tests, if one of the developers makes a change to something, the test fails, it'll give us the line number exactly where it failed. So you'll notice, like, as it's running, this actually opens up its own browser and it'll go and verify the account. So they actually do a screen scrape here and get that number, store it to the clipboard, and then tag it in right here when the login comes, this screen here. How this is there's kind of two main files that run this entire thing. And one is this base file. And so the way Appium is set up, you set up these iOS desired capabilities. And so this desired capabilities is actually pointing at my simulator, which is version 16.1 on an iPhone 14. And then the automation test, which is kind of important, is named that. Android has a separate one. So the reason it's important is because get this going on any kind of other app, this is how you're kind of like searching for elements on the page. And here's the local app that's running. Sorry, I'll slow down a bit, but basically after I get the APK file, here's my ready QA folder. I just drop that app into there, and then that's how it knows where to pick up this file and start running the test. The code itself, this is written in Java. You can do it in Python. There's some other options for like Node and a few others, but this is in Java. And you'll just kind of notice how these elements get called, right? It's like driver2, find element by XPath. And then what we did is we actually named all our elements, not all of them, but a good majority of them. So it'll, look for the first name field, and then we can, in this case, we can just send like the name Harris, Cooper Smith. For the email address, we use Mailinator currently, which is just like an online service. So we can just create an email, go hit that URL, grab the code off of it, and then come back in. That's basically how it works, kind of where we're going with this whole thing. So this is the stack we're going to go for now. Someone kicks off of a Fastlane build, right? That's what we're using for the CI/CD. So our developers basically want to just use Fastlane. So there's a plugin where Fastlane can connect to AWS, and then we can run the tests on AWS. And I'll show you that right now. AWS has something called the Device Farm. There's tons of devices you can choose from and run these. And so what this basically we'll do is I'll just walk into it because that version kind of relates to this. So when you create a new run, it asks you to upload a IPA file. And then you can just name this whatever, right? And then when you hit next, you select the framework you're running, and we're running Appium Java ng test. And then what you do from this step is you zip up all our test files, basically our Java files, into a jar, and we put that here. And then you'll notice here's your Appium versions. So the AWS isn't running 2.0 yet. It's running 1.9, and there's some older versions you can run as well on that. So anyways, you can still see this test is running. This is actually the part of the test where it redoes the quiz. So it retakes the quiz. And then now when it comes to this next page, it'll say 100%. Voila. And basically the last step of this test is it resets the book and logs out. So the next time I run the test, it just automatically runs again. I don't have to do anything extra. And then you'll notice here that this is kind of all just running right here in the bottom of IntelliJ. And then boom, 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 I get all green check marks if everything passes. And, 1 pass, 0 failures. That's the process.
What does it show if a test fails? Does it like take a screenshot and put it somewhere?
I'll show you in AWS actually, because it's a little bit. What it does for me locally is it'll just print out a bunch of stuff here as far as what line it failed on. It'll also, where's the Appium log? Oh, I have one more thing to show. The Appium log will show you as well. And then I'll show you another debugging tool. But let me show you the AWS, because what AWS does is, for instance, it makes a video of it. The video is not helpful because it doesn't even open the app for some reason, but this test specification log is. So I can go in here and figure out exactly what line it failed on and where it's getting to. And then on the debugging side, Appium has this product here, which is called the Appium Inspector. If I go ahead and just now refresh, so this is connected to the device now. And then if I just refresh this page will load, and then I can start selecting these elements. And so what I do is I'll grab this element here. Here's the X path to it, the learn button, right? And then I can just copy this. And if I go back to my code, I don't know, I could do driver find element by X path, right? And then I could just say the learn button and whatever I want to do with it. If I want to send keys to it, if I want to click it, the Appium documentation, there's not a ton of commands on these, but there's everything you need. Find element, here's all the actions for it, click, send keys, clear. There's just a ton of stuff. If you need to do stuff with the device, you can do that. We're not doing as far as maybe making it take a picture or something like that. We're not doing anything like that though.
And you do have to write different separate tests for Android and iOS, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're similar in the way they run, but the elements are the way you find an element and click it or whatever. So we find it by these. Yeah.
Does an element have to be on screen in order to be recognized?
It seems to be, yeah.
Okay. So if you have an element that's been rendered, but it's off screen, like if you had a list view and it was off screen, does it pick those up? Or does it, I guess being an integration test, it has to be what the user would see, right?
Yes, but for instance, when I click this track button, it's actually the settings one. In order to log out, I have to scroll all the way down the screen to get to it. Mm-hmm. But my test, I don't have to scroll the screen on my test.
So it finds that element?
Yeah, so I guess it's seeing that whole, even though it's out of the view, it still knows it's on that, it's rendered. So.
Yeah, in our widget test, we have to specify to look off screen or not. So I was just curious about that.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe if you had a scrolling list that's adding to the list as you're maybe calling the API or something, but
In that case, it wouldn't be rendered yet.
Right,
Right.
exactly. But it seems to figure out what's rendered, even if it's kind of off screen.
Okay.
So what if you have like a pop-up, like covering up like the back button in your settings? Would you still be able to click on it?
No,
Or do you
that I don't know. That I don't know, because I'm dealing with the pop-up. I'm actually clicking the pop-up. So, and there is a setting within Appium that will that'll auto click all system ones. So like allow push notifications or something like that. I handle those, but there's a setting that'll take care of that, just to auto allow or whatever.
Jeremy, a couple of questions. Have you seen any slowness whatsoever in terms of XPath, using XPath approach?
What do you mean slowness? Just in like the test running or something? Or
Yeah, test running. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening when sometimes when the tests used to fail when I was developing them, like it wasn't finding an element. So I didn't know if it's not because it's rendered on the screen or if it's an XPath having an issue finding it. But that's why I had to add all the delays in there.
Delays. Yeah, I saw this, some of the sleeps. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have something inbuilt where Appium would say, okay, if we are looking for a certain element, if it's not rendered, it would automatically wait for a specific connection rather, because if we say 5 seconds, it may run, it may not run given a throttle or any other network at that point for another machine or another user running the machine, you know. But apparently when you were running it a while ago, right, it was pretty zippy. I mean, it was not really
Yeah. I mean, I think that test,
yeah.
if I run that test manually, it probably takes me 3 minutes to do all that.
Oh,
And this one, it takes 6 minutes to do it. And that's just because of the delays. I think if what you're talking about, like if it were programmed to where it was like, if this element's there, do it. And then it's just waiting, you know, so you could get a lot of those actual time delays out of there.
Second question, Jeremy, I has is, have you being, is there any other tool that you are aware of that you could compare apple to apple in terms of automation, mobile framework, testing framework, in addition to Appium that you are aware of?
No, the only one I've used is called Cobitron, which is kind of an online software as a service. And you can kind of what you guys were speaking of earlier. It's like a more of a GUI based test where you don't have to code it. The only problem I've had with that in the past was from a pricing perspective. They say that all these devices are available to you, but they're really not. So sometimes you run a test and it's 4 hours later till you get a result because the devices are tied up. Maybe if you're on an enterprise package, it's better, but I was with a startup.
I
So,
see. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
But my background in this, just so everybody's aware, is when I got brought onto the project, it was just to do manual testing, and the previous developer had done a little of this. So I just reached into the code and basically learned all of this stuff. So this is kind of my first pass at it as well. It's been it's pretty cool. I mean, it's really cool stuff, but you know, it's obviously you have to figure out what works and what doesn't.